Today we're explaining the origins of the 2012 horror movie Sinister, directed by Scott Derrickson and co-written by Derrickson and C. Robert Cargill. We'll be diving deep into what inspired the story, who Bagool was based on, the meaning of some of the symbols in the movie, and a real-life murder that's connected to the story. On that grim note, let's dive deep into the real-life origins of Sinister. If showing Bagool in home movies reminds you of Samara from The Ring, you're right on the money. Sinister was inspired by a nightmare Cargill had after watching The Ring. In an interview with Love Horror, he explains what the whole nightmare was about. He said, "I was climbing into my attic when I saw a box with Super 8 films and a projector in it. I spooled up the first film, and it was the opening image of Sinister. That nightmare stuck with me for a while, and eventually I realized it might make for a pretty good horror movie. Turns out he was right, and that nightmare became the opening scene of the movie." After meeting up for drinks with his writer-director friend Scott Derrickson, he decided to pitch him the nightmare as a movie idea. Derrickson loved it so much that he asked Cargill to write a 5-page treatment right away. A week and a half later, they were pitching the movie to Jason Blum of Blumhouse Productions, and Blum bought it there and then. In the same interview with Love Horror, Cargill explains that he's a longtime horror fan. "And my wife and I spend most weekends sifting through Netflix to find horror movies one or both of us haven't yet seen. Inspirations for the film chiefly come from The Changeling, The Ring, for obvious reasons, Blow Up, Hardcore, and an obscure little piece of nasty cinema called Devil Times 5. When trying to get into the mindset of the script, Derrickson asked Cargill to send him a list of movies to watch, and Devil Times 5 was one of them. Also known as People Toys and Tantrums, the 1974 movie is about a bunch of homicidal children that kill a bunch of people. Another one of those movies, The Changeling, is a 1980 film about a composer that moves into a mansion where weird things happen, making him believe the place is haunted." In an interview with Script, Derrickson explains how they structured Sinister after that movie. He said, "The Changeling is told entirely from the main character's perspective, and he's seeing the horror in themselves. So let's not show Sinister from a family's perspective." Sinister is full of symbols throughout the movie. The most obvious one is the actual symbol painted on the walls throughout the film. It is a representation of Bagool and the connection between his world to ours. While the closest real-life symbol it compares to is the pentagram, I can't find anything explaining a deeper meaning. I think they just wanted something that looked cool as hell, so they borrowed from pagan symbols and black metal iconography to make it, not giving much thought to a specific meaning. On the other hand, the other symbols that represent Bagool do have some meaning. Throughout the movie, Ellison runs into a scorpion, a snake, and a black dog, which are all representations of Bagool. In an interview with Dread Central, Cargill explains that the dog, scorpion, and snake are all associated with entities that could transfer their power into this world. According to a myth by ancient Greek poet Hesiod and Roman poet Ovid, Gaia, the mother of all life, sent out a giant scorpion to kill the hunter Orion. The New Testament also presents serpents and scorpions as representations of evil. A snake-like creature from the Akkadian period, known as the Mushushu, meaning fierce serpent, served as the attendant for various ancient deities, including the underworld god Ninazu, the Babylonian god Marduk, and the Assyrian god Ashur. And when it comes to dogs, there's a ton of connection to ancient mythology. For example, Cerberus is a 3-headed dog that guards the gates of Hades in Greek mythology. Neo-Babylonian periods considered dogs to be magical emblems of protection. Specifically, black dogs, like the one Ellison ran into, are considered to be demonic entities that can shapeshift and are associated with evil. They also serve as hellhounds and omens of death. When it came time to figure out Bagool's look, they wanted to have a monster that was both terrifying and alluring. They wanted him to have a mask, or mask-like look, because according to them, what everyone is always afraid of is the unknown, or the unfamiliar. You gotta have a look for a character that is mysterious and menacing, and doesn't quite look like what we've seen before. The original look that Cargill proposed was an evil-looking Willy Wonka, but Derrickson instead decided to turn to Flickr for inspiration. He looked through thousands of horror images, and after narrowing it down to about 15, he shared his findings with Cargill, and they both picked one image called Natalie that they really liked. He said, "The more we looked at that image, the more we liked it. It suddenly occurred to me, what if it was exactly this? So we bought the picture for a couple $100 and gave the guy concept design credit, and that's the look of Bagool / Mr. Boogie. In creating the origins of Bagool, the writers decided to make him a pagan deity instead of a demon, something outside of a specific religion. When promoting Sinister 2, they even released a poster giving us the basic idea of where he came from. According to the information, Bagool is an ancient Babylonian deity known as the Devourer of Children. He's the brother of Moloch, a real-life Canaanite god associated with child sacrifice. Apparently, Bagool wasn't a very original deity and decided to just steal his brother Moloch's thing. He was so bloodthirsty and greedy that he even started stealing the children that were supposed to be sacrificed to Moloch. Bagool would then take them to his underworld home and feed from them over time. Now Moloch didn't like that one bit, so he shut Bagool's mouth with ash for all eternity so Boogie would never be able to taste flesh. While this is the most direct connection to actual mythology, there are also some similarities to other ancient deities, such as Baal and Tlaloc, namely the part about sacrificing children. When the killer children make those drawings depicting their family murders, they always refer to Bagool as Mr. Boogie. That's because Bagool was literally based on the boogeyman. If you somehow escaped the childhood trauma of parents scaring you into behaving better, here are the basics. The boogeyman is the story that parents tell their kids so they can behave well, because otherwise, the boogeyman will come and get you. Usually shown as a masculine monster, the boogeyman is this dark figure that punishes misbehaving children by kidnapping them. The creature is as universal as you can get, and various forms of the boogeyman exist throughout different cultures. Whether it's the Sagman, El Cuco, Butzeman, or Babao, the boogeyman has one central principle: to teach children some good old lessons about behavior. Some versions are spirits, while others are demons. Some will simply frighten kids, while others will kidnap them and eat them. While the appearance of each version depends on the culture, a lot of them depict the boogeyman as having claws, talons, and sharp teeth. Because he's so widespread and popular, it's difficult to pinpoint the exact origins of the creature. However, some of the earliest references are from the 1500s in Europe, where the boogeyman was a hobgoblin that liked to play pranks on people. While the pranks were usually lighthearted, some versions were darker and resulted in people being scared to death. Between June 9th and June 10th of 1912, the Moore family and two of their guests were bludgeoned to death with an axe in Villisca, Iowa. Known as the Villisca Axe Murders, the crime currently remains unsolved as no one has been found guilty of the murders. The Moore family consisted of parents Josiah and Sarah, along with their 4 children, ranging in ages from 5 to 11. The kids had invited 2 of their friends for a sleepover. The last time they were seen was on the evening of June 9th at a church activity. The next morning, the neighbor became concerned when she didn't see them and called Josiah's brother, who went in with his spare key and found the corpses. Based on the evidence, the theory was that the killer waited in their attic until they fell asleep and then proceeded to murder them. While there were many suspects, no one was found guilty of the crime, and it remains unsolved to this day. In the Sinister DVD special features, there's a featurette titled Living in a House of Death, where they explore the case and film on location. The final scene of the movie seems like it was inspired, at least in part, by the Villisca Axe Murders. The house currently stands as a tourist attraction since many people believe the place is haunted. During the filming of the featurette, the crew even films the door closing on its own. Whether it's a supernatural event or not, I'll let you decide. Overnight stays go for $428 for groups of 1 to 6 people. I'll add a link in the description below for those of you who are feeling adventurous. That wraps up this Origins Explained for Sinister. Thanks for watching Superstitious, and we'll see you next time.